It's been 7 hours and 50 days since you took your love away. I go out every night and sleep all day since you took your love away. Since you've been gone, I can do whatever I want. I can see whomever I choose. I can eat my dinner in a fancy restaurant, but nothing, I said nothing can take away this blues. Nothing compares to you. you here, like a bird without a song. Nothing can stop these lonely tears from falling. Tell me, baby, where did I go wrong? I could put my arms around
It was a great one. So first of all, welcome to all of you and thank you for coming. I'm going to use my cheat sheet from time to time because I can't always remember. But I can honestly say he'd be really happy that you're all here. Everyone who's here, you're all people that are family, friends, neighbors, colleagues, all people that he loved and admired and respected and was happy to be with. And on the not too distant future, your future and mine, we will be approaching his favorite time of the day, which was the cocktail hour. And he would sit in that corner and look at his view, admire his yard, and think about what a great home he had. So I'm glad that you're here. I've had a couple of people have asked me about the picture on the program. Everybody thinks it's a really nice, happy picture, but everybody wants to know what on earth he's carrying. And turns out it's a dead chicken. So we were on a river cruise with our friends Margaret and Robert who are here, and I wanted to sign up for cooking class, and he said, sure, why not, I'll do it too. And the cooking class wasn't just going, sitting, eating and drinking. You had to go to market, do the prep work, chop, etc., and then cook, and then you got to eat and drink. And so he was quite happy when he went to the market, and we stopped at the poultry stand, and looking at him, she said, oh, these are great chickens. This is the woman running the show. And she said, this is how you tell that a chicken is fresh. Their head is on, there's a ruff of feathers around their neck, and their guts are still in. He was happy to carry the chicken home, but he said there was no way he was chopping a head off, gutting a chicken, or anything like that. So that's the story behind this. But he, it's kind of typical of Mike. He had, just as you know, a boundless curiosity, an abundance of energy, and he was very adventuresome. And when I say boundless curiosity, sometimes that boundless curiosity gave me heart palpitations, and other times it was just like, oh well. And one of the things that he did, and we were visiting my mother in Saskatoon. I was having dinner with our ex-law partner, and Mike, who's always interested in real estate, said, oh, you know, what's for sale around here? And our friend drove him by this old heritage building, built in 1908 in Saskatoon, Saskatchewan. And we're driving home, and we get home, and he turns to me and says, we're going to buy that building. You haven't seen the inside. You don't know what it's going to cost us, but he was pretty certain that he was going to buy that building because he thought they would make great condos. And he did. He knew nothing about construction in Saskatoon. He didn't know anything about the municipal regulations. Didn't matter. So, and he did it, and he had a great time doing it. I think he drove my sister immediately after me, slightly dotty, because Mike was a paper guy, and everything he did was pencil paper, and she had to interpret, make up the spreadsheets, and so on and so forth. But she did a great job. That, in that respect, he was pretty fearless. If he knew what he knew, and what he didn't know, he was pretty certain he could find out. And he did. And so I was kind of quite happy just to tag along and whatever. And then, of course, after that, there was the CD Rep project, where he knew absolutely nothing about building, constructing, running a theater, but again, he knew engineering, he loved blueprints, and what he didn't know, he would find out, and he did. So that was kind of fun. And same with all the houses and renovations we did, the houses we built. He loved blueprints and floor plans and building, and so for him it was a natural thing to do. And as I said, he really was totally fearless when it came to anything to do with hands-on work. He loved to be hands-on. When I talk about his adventurous spirit, of course, that all related to travel. Travel everywhere. And it was never enough for him just to go someplace. He needed to experience that place, either by walking every single side street, or as in Egypt, when he decided that it would be a really good afternoon idea to go and hire a felucca to take us down the Nile in Cairo, and after crossing like millions of miles of traffic on the Cairo Corniche, we hopped into the little felucca and off we went. But as only Mike can do, he turned to the little guy who didn't speak. Mike didn't speak Arabic, and the little guy definitely did not speak New Jersey. And so, but somehow they all got the message across that Mike wanted to take the rudder, and so he did. And you saw the picture on there, and it looked like two boats were about to wander into each other. Well, it almost happened. So, and then of course in South Africa, he thought that he really wanted to be the spotter in the seat up front, where he could see everything. He had pretty good eyesight. And so they were very accommodating, and they let him do that too. Because what's the point of going someplace if you can't figure out what everybody there does? So it was always lots of fun to travel with him. And he really liked exploring and doing new and different things. He took up painting again. The back of the program is a picture of his painting. And he started out doing acrylics, and then he met Charlie Ciali in the desert, and he used his studio and he did encaustics, and then he did printmaking. And like, he just figured, well, that's a good thing to do in my spare time, whenever that spare time occurred. Never. Practically never. But you know, he really loved this community, this valley, and he felt really blessed to be able to participate and do things, whether it was for CD Rep, for Out for MS, for the Jocelyn Center, or our own HOA. He loved to participate, and he felt he had something, and if he felt he had something to offer, he would not hesitate to offer it. So he was always an ocean guy, but he fell in love with this, and when he walked into this house in 2008, again he said, "We are going to buy this place." And he did use the royal we very liberally, I can tell you. Even when I'm going, it was still we. And I have to say that most of all, he really loved and cherished his family. His children, Phyllis, Mark, and David, his grandchildren, Chanel and Taylor, and his great-grandchildren, Gianna and Bianca. And he's soon to have a third one as well. Unfortunately, I think he got to see the ultrasound. That was about it for that one. And so I was blessed to be a part of this family, and I've enjoyed every minute of it. And so, even though it was hard, and I didn't expect what happened to happen, I do try to channel some of that Monachino energy and exuberance and zest, and every day I do try to remember Mike's last words of advice to me, which were, try to smile. So, having said that, I want to introduce you to someone who makes me smile, and that is Mike's daughter, Phyllis, who is just... She's the most really warm, loving, generous person, and quite apart from that, she brought all of her expertise in hospice care to bear when Mike was near the end, and really helped us navigate that whole period. So Phyllis?
Very hard act to follow. So I'm one of three. Obviously, you saw pictures of me through the years. You did pick very nice pictures, thank you. And my brothers. So my dad was a lot of things to a lot of people. He was a businessman, he was an entrepreneur, he was an architect, a philanthropist, and an artist, and many other things. But what you might not know is that my dad also was called the Spackle King and the mayor of La Valette because of his gift of gab, and because I have never met a person who could spackle a wall better than my father. And you would not know it was damaged. Anyway, I know you know him in different capacities, but I want you to get to know the person that my dad was as my dad. And he was everything that Barb said and larger than life. He is very large shoes for us to come and follow in his place. So I'm going to apologize ahead of time. because I was trying to figure out how to condense 60-ish years, I won't say exactly how many, years into about a few minutes speech. To make it meaningful for you too, so that you can understand the person that you know now was a continuation of the person that I grew up with and had as a dad. So there's a lot of random thoughts here, but they actually do have some meaning to you, I hope, at the end. So one of the first things that came to mind was Valentine's Day. I grew up in the 60s and 70s, so most of you should be able to relate. On Valentine's Day, my dad would come home with a box of chocolate and flowers for my mother and me. Now, having two brothers, my brothers would be like, well, what about us? And my dad came over the years, he would say something like, well, this is for my ladies in my life. And you'll get your due when it's time for you, but this is for mom and this is for Phyllis. So he would do that every year religiously. And it made me feel special. Because growing up in an Italian household, girls are not necessarily the most important component in that family. Everybody wants boys. Until my daughter had her kids, and then that was a whole big deal. She has 2 kids, and her husband said, that's enough. They stopped at the 2 girls. Anyway, so another thing that my family did was sports. We were always involved in sports. We were always active. There was never a time when we weren't involved in stuff. My brothers played soccer, basketball. I was in gymnastics and swimming. And my dad always coached my brothers. And they always won. But because he always made you try to be the best you could. He always expected that you were going to be that excellent person. And you just rose to that occasion. He didn't have to say that, you just knew it. His whole teams knew that. And whether we lost or won, he still took us all out for ice cream. So maybe that's why we tried a little harder. I don't know. But he always included me in that. And at that time, I was the scorekeeper. I went to all the games. My dad never stopped to say, oh, well, you're a girl, you can't play. So he would take me out in the field, and I would learn how to bat. I learned how to, field. And when we all played soccer, so soccer was new in the 70s. Again, I'm aging myself. But so there was an opportunity for me to be a soccer coach. And that was great. But it was for 8 and under boys. And so at the time, people were like, girls coaching boys, now that would not be so big a deal. Back then it was. And my dad was like, nope, you're good, you go, we're all behind you. So again, he was the kind of person that just pushed you to do things outside of that expected constraints that you might be in. One of the other things I remember is the Jersey Shore. That is second home to my dad. We grew up there every year, 2 weeks out of the year. My dad always worked. You're not kidding when I tell you, I don't remember a time where my dad was not working, either for IBM or projects or whatever. So that long-standing, he was always changing, building, moving things around. But we would go to the Jersey Shore for 2 weeks every summer, and he would, when we were kids, you know how you go to the arcades? So, I don't know, if you've never been to New Jersey or the shore, there's a boardwalk and there's lots of arcades and games. And my parents used to go back after we were in bed, and they'd play skee ball. So if you don't know what skee ball is, it's kind of like bowling, maybe like bowling, and you kind of roll the ball and it goes into these little hoops and you get points. And you get tickets. So they would do that for 2 weeks. And at the end of 2 weeks, they would hand us all these tickets. And back then, you could get a pretty decent prize for the tickets. Now, it's like these little things. But anyway, so he would do that just to make us happy. And to be honest with you, now my kids have gone to the shore. My grandbabies, I actually am back in New Jersey, on the shore living there now. So my grandbabies are going there now. So it's like four generations that have been going to the Jersey Shore. So it's a legacy that we keep going and we keep being there for him. And I get to experience all these things that he did with us, with my kids, and now my kids are doing it with their their kids, and it's kind of awesome to watch. And then the other thing, I'll be really quick, college. So again, I'm going to date myself. So when I was going to college, there was no choice. It was like, you're going to college. Just where are you going to college? I happened to go to Boston College. And when I got accepted, I got early admissions, blah, blah, blah. My grandfather said, and turned to my dad, and I was there, and he goes, why would you send your daughter to college? She's just going to get married and have babies. And my father said, turned to his father and said, this is my daughter, she's going to be the doctor. And if she's going to college. Path went a different way, didn't turn out to be a doctor, but he was always a defender of, you know, whatever tradition is, I don't care, this is my daughter, she's going. And then also, I was telling Barb about this, in middle school, again, you had a choice, right? You had home ec or shop. Okay? Most women took home ec. Well, I'm not most women, because I had a dad who I used to follow around. I could pour cement. I knew how to lay a floor. I knew how to spackle. I knew how to look at a car engine and know if there's a problem with my car. My dad taught me these life skills that have my brother's just finding out that, oh, I can do that? I'm like, yeah, you could. So I used to follow him around and do all those things. So when the opportunity came, what did I do? I chose shop. So I learned how to use a blowtorch and a lathe and have no idea what sewing is. But so that was, again, you know, my dad just inspired me to do that. So really, my dad taught me a lot of values. He didn't really have to speak them. He just showed you them. You just knew by what he did, because he would push himself so hard to be excellent at what he did. It just inspired you all to want to do that as well. And still, to this day, I have passed on, that is my dad's legacy. So I have passed on these things to my daughters now, and they're passing them on to their children. So his legacy to me is to strive to do better, do more, and make an impact. So I thank you, and if it resonates with you, I'm really happy for that. But thank you again.
So, now we've heard from one side of the family. Now, I get to call on the Foster side of the family to give their reminiscences of Mike. So I'm going to call on Corinne, Christine, and my brother Terry.
Okay, if you insist.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Corinne. I'm the youngest sister to Barbara. And before Barb and Mike were married, Barb thought it'd be interesting to bring Mike, up to Canada and to our parents' 50th anniversary. And so I think Mike got a little more than he bargained for, because it wasn't just in the immediate family, it was my dad's, or our dad's, brothers and sisters, and there were quite a few. I think there was just about all of them were there, and a lot of cousins. So we got to meet quite a large family. So it was such a fun time to have him, well, for me anyhow, to meet him, because I'd never met him before. So I think we all thought, well, wow, this man really seems to make our sister very happy. And so that was so great to see. There were other memories, my own personal memories, where when my twin sister and I, it was our 40th birthday. And so all of us decided we're gonna have a mom and daughter trip. So there was myself, my twin, and then my older sister here, and my sister Barb, and of course, our mother. And so it was really nice. It was Mom and the girls. And so we headed off to New York, and Mike was just great. He booked us into a what was it, a yacht, like a New York's premier dining cruise. So it was so much fun, and so there was no shortage of women for Mike to dance with, because he had all the girls and his mother-in-law. So he had lots of people to dance with. Another highlight of the trip was Mike took the 3 C's, that's myself and my sister Colleen and Christy. We went to a ball game at Shea Stadium. So that was a real treat for us. Best hot dogs and beer I've ever had, so it was great. And so that was a really, a very fond memory for myself. And I'm hoping my sisters. A couple of other important memories for myself is when my brother Terry organized, well, along with the other cousins, organized a big foster family reunion. So up comes Mike again, and this time he gets to meet, I don't know, I think 160 foster descendants, 160 of us, around that much. So, I mean, out of 30 first cousins, 28 of us were there. So Mike got to meet everybody. So we do have quite a large family. Let's see, what else did I have? And of course, when we started coming up to Palm Springs, the main activity we did was go golfing. And so Mike and Barb introduced us to a lot of different courses around Rancho Mirage, and it was just a great time for us to come up. We would escape the minus 50 below weather, and you probably can't imagine what that is, but it's really cold when it's minus 50. But we'd come up and we'd do a lot of golfing, and so that was the activity, and we'd have fun, and then, like I think my brother-in-law Gordon and Barb and Mike would go out for a hike, and then one day we'd all go golfing, and then at the end of the day, we'd all sit down, have cocktails, and just kind of regale stories. And we'd have a lot of laughs. And that's how I remember Mike.
My name's Chris, and I am the middle sibling of the family. My sister has more accurate time frame, but I do remember first meeting Mike about, I would say 26, 27 years ago, when Barb did bring him up to Saskatchewan to meet the family. They drove up in Mike's sports car. And so he delighted in taking us all for rides in his sports car. I don't know how many of you are familiar with the prairies up in Canada, but we have very long, very open stretches of road. And so he delighted in the speed. And that's the first occasion where I learned and admired how much Mike could live in the moment and take joy in that moment. And then, of course, we went back to the acreage, and Barb had to tell him that in Saskatchewan, if you happen to be stopped by law enforcement going those speeds, they could impound his car. So, oh well. So, and we had many opportunities over the years to experience the wonderful hospitality that Barb and Mike showed. And again, for myself, that special trip to New York was really, we did so many fun things. And interestingly enough, Corrine is talking about the beer and the hot dogs at the ball game. I remember getting to the ball game. So we were in New York City, and he decided we would take the subway to get there, which was an experience for these women from the prairies. So there were my sisters and I and Mike, and he sat, even before we got on the train, he said, when those doors open, he said, you get on with me. And he said, you stay close to me. And he said, and when we go on that train, he said, and when those doors open and I get off, you stay close to me. He said, I don't know where I'll find you if you don't get off when I get off. And all the way there, he was telling us about this. And so there we were, huddled around Mike. And I'm quite sure it was amusing to everybody, all these New Yorkers on this subway to see Mike. But it really spoke to me. Mike wanted to take care of family, how important family was to him, and he was not going to let us stay on the train and end up in who knows where in New York City. But a lot of fun things. Really, my husband enjoyed golfing with Mike and hiking with Mike. And yes, I was the one that worked with him in business on the project, and it was fun. It actually really was a good experience. But I guess my most enduring memory will be, as Barb has already said, the love that Mike had for family. And it didn't stop at his biological family. It extended to us. And it was really demonstrated to me by his relationship with our mother. He loved her, respected her, and especially once my father passed away, he really wanted to make sure that she was taken care of. And when I was growing up, I was always told, when you're dating a young man, if you really want to know if he's going to be a keeper, then you watch how he treats his mother. And then you're going to know. And I tell you, if that is a measure of a man, then Mike was absolutely golden. and it was important to us. We loved Mike. We miss him. And I feel privileged that he considered us to be his family as well.
One thing about being last is, well, there's two things. One, everyone in front of me spoke before me, and Phyllis said everything I was going to say. The second best thing about it is that my sisters can't contradict me.
Really?
I'm the only boy. The family's like picked on all the time. You know what it's like, guys. Anyway, Mike. Mike was different than any other person I've ever met. It's not often in your life when you meet a brilliant mind who can do many things very well. As Barbara noted, he was an engineer. I think he was a fantastic architect. He was a designer. He was creative, painter, printmaker, photographer. There's no end of things that you can say about Mike. He affected many, many people in his life and had a tremendous impact on people. When you think about his career with IBM, I'm sure all of us here, or most of us here, have a little device in our pockets, as do millions of other people around the world, or billions. And I bet you can find IBM DNA in every one of those devices. All his volunteer work. He's just affected so many people. And I was thinking one day that the definition of someone who's really bright and can do many things very well is he's a Renaissance man. And Mike would be in his glory, sitting around a table with a glass of wine, talking to Leonardo da Vinci or Michelangelo. He was that type of person. The world is a lesser place now that he's gone. And he will be missed. Thank you.
Well, as I said before, we love living in this valley, and we love living in this development. And we were very fortunate to have, and do have, really great neighbors. And during COVID, we became even closer. My neighbors, Kelly and Dawn and Fred and Nancy, we were all kind of here. You couldn't go anywhere. We all knew where everybody was because you weren't going anywhere. And we became very, very close, all of us. And Mike was kind of like a husband to a few of, to Kelly, to Nancy, and to Dawn before she met Butch. He loved all of those guys too. So I've asked Fred and, well, I've asked all my neighbors, but only two I think are willing to brave it and come and speak, Dawn and Fred.
Thank you, Bob. I think Fred's got a speech first before I start. So I'm just gonna.
Could Nancy and Kelly come up here?
Can we get Nancy? Kelly? This is a very special speech that Fred has wrote.
First of all, I was born in the St. General Hospital that Mike was born in 7 years later, in Passaic, New Jersey, two Jersey boys. And it's amazing that we ended up neighbors across the street in California. Okay, one day, I was walking my dog, and I was approached by a homeowner here, who's a new homeowner that's joining the States, and asked, was that Cary Grant in his short shorts walking down the block? And I said, no, that was Mike Monachino, Vice President of the HOA. Most likely, he and his wife Barbara were taking their morning stroll, checking out the community. For as long as I can remember, Mike was on the board of the HOA. He was active on many boards, as you probably know. Dawn, she's the former president, will tell you all about Michael and his commitment to Sterling Estates. While most of us were hibernating during the pandemic, Mike delved full steam ahead into his projects with exuberance. The remodeling of various rooms in his house, he would say, come see the bathroom. Come see how I opened up the wall in the back room. The repaving of the Sterling Estate streets, replacing the stolen grass, turf, that's what it is, on Gerald Ford.
3 times.
3 times. And the renovation of the CV rep. I don't know if all of you have been to that theater, but he helped create quite a jewel for us here in the Valley. My fondest memory of Michael and his wife Barbara was during the onset of the pandemic. This was approximately 2020. Vaccines were not yet approved, and except for mask protection, everyone was petrified in fear of leaving their homes. Ignoring, to some respect, all the warnings, Michael and Barb were truly concerned about their neighbors, especially those who were single, without spouses, without partners, living alone. Some facing their own devastating personal issues, a sudden divorce, the loss of a long-time companion, pet, and a serious health diagnosis. They reached out and invited us over for numerous dinners with all the necessary precautions. We sat at opposite ends of the table. Outside, masks optional. They opened their home to us. These gatherings became routine and created and solidified a special unique bond among us. We could and would depend on each other when needed from then on. This group here. We called ourselves the pandemic pals, the PPs. Mike hated that name. But it was the one true positive result of the pandemic. I've since read an article on how crucial it is to develop close ties with your neighbors. If and when an emergency occurs, it's more likely your neighbors could come to your rescue than friends or relatives likely miles away. Michael was a sentimental guy. Many of you might not know that Christmas was his favorite holiday. He and Barbara collected Santas from all over the world from their global travels.
A lot. A lot.
The first Christmas I attended their home, I was in awe. There was possibly 100 Santas.
More
Meticulous-
than that.
Meticulously placed throughout the house, all in their designated spots. This was their holiday tradition. Their home should have been a stop, I thought, on a Christmas tour of Palm Springs, if there was one. The Santas had their own storage unit, specifically rented to house all of these Santas prior to their display.
Numbered boxes,
Numbered boxes.
organized by Barb.
Unfortunately, this past Christmas, Michael would be too ill to join Barbara to collect the Santas from the storage unit. Their affection and devotion to us was contagious. We made it our mission to pool our cars, trucks, and made a caravan, and went to with Barbara to collect all the Santas at the storage unit. Kelly called upon her trainer and her husband, Daniel and Katrina, to bring their pickup truck, and in 45 minutes, all the Santas were delivered. Barbara, along with Mark, Michael's son, personally placed each Santa in their designated location. Mike would be surrounded by his neighbors and Santas for his last Christmas. This last Christmas will always be a very sentimental memory for us at Sterling Estates. We lost our cherished neighbor, our own Cary Grant, a guy who enriched our community.
Thank you, Chris. Thank you. So guys, I used to live in Sterling Estates. I just recently moved out and moved into a new home.
This is the ex-president of the board.
And I'm the ex-president of the Sterling Estates board. But here's my wonderful memories of Mike. Let me go back. The first time I met Mike, it was at our Sterling Estates board meeting around 6 years ago. He was our treasurer, and I was so impressed at his knowledge and expertise of handling the financials and for our community. And he was just so fully committed to keep the budget intact and strive to keep our HOA dues low. I always thought he was an amazing mathematician at that time, that he always knew how to control the budget in our community. A couple of years later, I joined the board, and Mike and I became good comrades and friends, both agreeing and striving for the same objectives, you know, for our community. During our time serving on the board, we encountered many challenges, both large and small, but Mike would always find the solution. He was the solution man. He was a true man of strength and inspiration to our community. Now, on a more personal matter, a couple of years ago, I was faced with a sudden divorce, which was a major blow to my life. And it was only Mike and Barb at that time that were really there for me. And of my time of distress, Mike and Barb literally opened their home to me. I can't explain how much emotional support they gave to me during my stay with them at my most stressful and traumatic time of my life. I will always be grateful for their love and support, including the love and support from my dear friend Kelly, who I love so much. And my neighbours on Ledgestone and over here, they gave me that support. I've had the most wonderful holiday celebrations with Mike and Barb at their home, and Mike was such a great host, and he was always the life and soul of the party. Agreed, girls?
Yes. And he walked us home.
Oh, he did, yeah.
Always walked us home. Always.
He always did. He brought so much love and joy to our little group of friends here on Ledgestone Lane. I'm just so lucky to have known such a wonderful man, and Mike will always be in my heart. Thank you.
I needed him yesterday. The smoke alarm went off and I couldn't reach it.
Why, he didn't show up for
He didn't show up.
Where was he? I'm a lucky person. Mike was a lucky too. Mike was a lucky person, and I was too with this group. You know, throughout the years, I told you, Mike and I have done a lot of traveling, and we were really fortunate on our trip to Russia to meet a wonderful couple from Vancouver, Robert and Margaret Smith, who we became really great traveling companions with, and they came down here, we'd cook together and have fun together.
Don't steal my speech, Barb.
I'd asked
Don't steal my
Robert if
speech.
he would say just a few words, but maybe I won't let him know. I don't know. So, this is our friend Robert Smith, who shared many travel adventures with us.
Thank you, Barb. I'm here with my wife Margaret of many years and my favorite traveling companion. And compared to you, most of you, and, our relationship, as Barbara said, was quite recent. We met them on a 2013 Russian cruise. And it turned out that, well, we met them on a shopping street in Moscow. We were waiting for the bus to take us back to the boat. And up walked this guy, and he's got a package.
We can't hear you.
Sorry, he's got a package.
There you go.
So, of course, I asked him, what's in the package? Guess what?
Santa.
A Santa. It's June, it's Moscow. It's Mike. Anyhow, so we get back to the boat, and Margie and I head to one of the bars on the boat, and there's only another couple in there, this guy and this beautiful companion. So we asked if we can join them, and that's when we had a proper introduction. So we had a drink, and then we had to go back to our cabins for the very serious safety drill. And we weren't kidding about it. And there we were. And you saw a picture earlier of my wife and Barbara. Anyhow, that was a great trip. And when we got back to our cabins, we realized that we were right across the passageway from each other, and that had to be a sign. And little did we know that within the next several years, we would enjoy a lot of adventures, many, many laughs, and not a few drinks again. Over the next few years, we managed to get together only for a few times here in the Coachella Valley and in New York City for dinners. And then a few years after that, in 2016, I contacted Mike and Barbara because we knew that they had used a particular tour company, and we were considering using the same company in Africa. And we asked them for their opinion. And all feedback was great. And then I got a phone call saying, can we come too? And the rest is history. So 2017, we met up on the road again in Cape Town, and we had a week of art touring, incredible art touring with two really fine locals, and saw lots and lots of stuff. And one of my favorite things to do when I first come down here is to take a look around and see that Barbara and Mike did more than just admire that art. Anyhow, after this week, we joined our tour and hit the trail, and then we went to the animals, and we saw animals. First time we get there, guess who's introducing everybody to the resident elephant? No surprise there. Anyhow, we saw the big five, small five, well, some of the small five, lots of critters in between, and huge swaths of beautiful African countryside, and untold, welcoming, and really fine people in South Africa, Zimbabwe, Namibia, and Botswana. You'll see in a minute why you need these notes. And couple it with that great trip and lots of laughs, too much South African wine, we all figured that we were onto a good thing. Margaret and I feel so fortunate that after that we were able to continue our travel adventures with Mike and Barbara during the next 5 years. Together we explored Madrid, the Basque Country of northern Spain, the Rhone area of southern France, a return visit to South Africa, plus time in Tanzania, Amsterdam, visits to the Champagne area of France, and Paris, Andalusia in southern Spain. So much beautiful scenery, fantastic art, incredibly interesting people, and way too much great food and wine. Interspersed with these overseas trips, we spent happy times with Mike and Barbara here over a few New Year's Eves, and they with us in Vancouver in the summer. Strangely enough, until 2019, Mike, the great IBM world traveler, had never been to Vancouver. It was a huge fun showing him and Barbara around, and to show them what our part of the world had to offer. No elephants, but not too shabby either. By the way, the drinks and the food and the laughs kept pace. And I've got a picture to show you here. My favorite of the four of us, actually. We were on our way to a performance of Bar on the Beach in Vancouver. It's the Shakespearean Festival. Anyhow, after the play, Mike went missing for a bit. Turns out he was up at the control booth, chatting up one of the theater techies, getting pointers for CB rep, probably. So Mike. COVID, of course, crimped everybody's enjoyment of life, and we mostly made do with Zoom meetings over cocktails. But when we were able to get together, at Mike's urging, we did learn to play pickleball and par 3 golf. The joys from the latter though were somewhat passing. How lucky we were that day in Moscow to meet Barbara and I, with whom we shared so many interests: travel, art, architecture, history, theater, movies, music, walking, hiking, food, wine, and just having a good time. Through it all, Mike was the cheerleader. Plus game for pretty much anything, interested in pretty much everything. His enthusiasm, his attitude, don't wait, do it now, was truly infectious and bang on. As Margaret and I mulled over what to say today, we are continually struck with how much richer our lives experiences have been. Just need water. How much richer our life's experience has been over the last decade. We've had a chance meeting in Russia. So thank the fates. Thank you, Barbara. And thank you, Mike.
served with Mike on the board of CV Rep, and I think Joe has a few words he'd like to
What's
say.
that?
You have a few words you'd like to say.
Just a few. Anyways, when I was president of CV Rep for 7 years, this is when we started going into construction for 2 theaters. We went at the Atrium and then at the IMAX. And you had Ron Salona, who has type of person who said, oh, I don't want to look at any numbers. And you had me, who goes, I don't know anything about construction. But then we had Mike and Joe. Joe basically here. And it was like a dream. Because we didn't know what we were doing. And Mike took over and did the construction. He actually was so invaluable, I can't tell you. And in fact, the construction went really a lot quicker because Mike wore those short shorts. And they just said, let's get this thing over with. So anyways, it was very successful. Mike was great, treasurer. Joe and Mike just saved us. I mean, I gotta say, to the fact that we had Joey doing all the money stuff and Mike doing all the construction stuff was really, really fantastic. And then what happened, as you all know, the pandemic. And Michael and Joe did all the research for how could we get money? How can we survive? We have no production. And we came up with this Theater Thursday. And Joey dug and dug and dug and got all this money and we survived. And it was great for a theater to survive during that time. So I have many wonderful, wonderful times with him, except when he wore the short shirts. So he's a great guy. As you heard tonight, he did many, many nonprofits. He was always in there. He was always digging. He's always, how do I save money? How do I save the cost? And he and Joe did that. So, thank you.
Thank you.
So, I have one more also really, really special person, and you all know him as well, Jim Egan. Jim has been really such a close friend to Mike and I ever since we got involved at about the same time as CV Rep. I think we saw the same show for the first time, and I just, he's a man I admire so much for everything that he's done. And he and Mike shared a love of painting and a love of theater. And Jim and his wife Carol are just so near and dear to us.
Well, when I first met Mike, I was impressed with the positive energy behind his smile. And every time I met him, I always felt the same thing. There was a certain positive energy down in his gut that drove his smile. I met Mike shortly after he joined the board of CV Rep. And just probably about within a few months, David Cohen, Joe Giarrusso, and Gary Paul negotiated the purchase of the IMAX theater in Cathedral City. And for a couple of weeks, as Joe alluded to, we ran around trying to figure out how in the hell do you convert a theater, a movie theater, into a live performance venue. And so several weeks later, we hired an architect. Not just an architect. This is a world-renowned architect. He had built or renovated over 300 theaters around the world. And so we hired this guy. In about 6 weeks, we had our first Zoom meeting to review the status. And the architect was very, very happy to say he was going to save.
You might be too close. Oh.
Not over those, huh?
You're a little too close to the mic, Jim, maybe you said. Speaker, or the speaker, just move forward a little bit. There, I bet that'll help with the feedback.
Okay.
That's better. Yeah.
That the architect was very pleased that he was going to be able to save the whole stage. And he was going to do that by adding a superstructure, a steel beam that went from one wall to the other wall. And that would support all the lights, all the stage scenes, and so forth. And just at that time, out of the corner of my eye, I saw Mike put his head down, lean back in his chair, close his eyes, and it was like this. And I said to myself, I hope he didn't fall asleep. About 2 minutes later, Mike perked up and politely asked the question, what is the load-bearing capacity of the walls? I can still see the architect's embarrassed face when he said, I do not know. Oh. So Michael, the next day, he went to the city and he got the drawings. He called me that night and said, the walls of the theater are like an eggshell. It won't hang a picture. And so now what do we do? 2 days later, Mike went to the city and got a complete set of drawings. And I distinctly remember a conversation we had with Barbara and Michael. We're at a restaurant, went out to sale. I forget the name of it. Do you remember the name of the restaurant?
Pizza place?
What's the name?
The pizza place?
Oh.
Oh, what is it called? Oh, Pizza Vino, yeah.
And here was the conversation. I was sitting across from Mike, and he was explaining to me how he was going to take these drawings to South Africa, and while he was gone, he had free time, he would redesign it. And when Barbara got that, she said, no, those drawings are not going to South Africa, we're on vacation. We've been planning this for years. As you would expect, the drawings went to South Africa. And when Mike came back, he had a complete design of that theater. And what you see now when you go to CB Rep is exactly the same as he designed it when he was on his South African adventure.
Wow.
Probably a year and a half later, as Joe mentioned, we entered the COVID period. And thanks to Joe's leadership, we were able to stay afloat. When Joe was offered to become CEO of the International Piano Palm Springs International Piano Competition, Mike took over as president of the board. I had several conversations with him. In each one, he had two things he wanted to accomplish. He said, we want to save the theater. And at that time, theaters like ours were going out of business all over the country, all over the world. And I want to preserve the employees. And thanks to Joe Basic's help, Michael became an expert on every single line item on the P&L and the balance sheet. And he started some cost-cutting activity, which the probably ruffled some feathers. But the end result was, when Mike turned the race over to David Cohan, we were in pretty good shape. And now, it's actually thriving. In March or April of 2023, Barbara asked me to paint a portrait of Michael for his 80th birthday, which was in September. And I had some photographs, and Barbara gave me some. And I started doing a little bit of a layout. And in case you don't know it, doing a portrait of someone is very similar to making wine. You start off with a grape mash, and then each vinter adds different elements. Some may add a touch of blackberry. You have the oak flavor. And the end result is all these nuances add character to the wine. I wanted to try to incorporate some of that in terms of Mike's, the quality, his honesty, integrity in the painting. I was about halfway through with the drawing when I realized that, in my opinion, Mike would not like a painting of himself, because Barbara has always been such an integral part of him and vice versa. So I took a chance at the last minute, without telling Barbara. I included Barbara in the painting. And some of the things that just one of the things I'll mention. I wanted to capture the quality of his long-standing friendship. I want to capture that character. And I looked around, and the way I expressed it in the painting was by using a Tiffany blue, which is, to me, has always symbolized the highest of quality and longevity. So with that in mind, may I introduce Michael and Barbara.
Don't trip me on the way out. Stay long. Go ahead. Anyways, thank you. I love it. So now, let me see. Oh my God. It's way past the cocktail hour. He would not be happy. So we are going to have some of Mike's favorite foods. So there's a little Scotch bar and a regular bar, because he likes Scott sitting there. And we're having some of Mike's favorite foods, like hamburgers and French fries and pizza. In terms of vegetables, you know, he wasn't a great green vegetable fan. So you're going to have a chopped wedge salad, because he thought that iceberg lettuce was pretty good. He did love pasta and red sauce, but I talked to him this morning in the office and I said, not a chance. So, and then for dessert, two of his really favorite desserts, jelly donuts and cannolis. So please.